And this one we do every Tuesday. It's called the Hustlers Playbook. And tonight on our Hustlers Playbook, we take a page from the dancing CEO, marketing maverick, and the man behind the mantra, stand against bland. From Nando's and MTV to founding one of Africa's most dynamic brand consultancies, Sylvester Chauke has never followed the crowd. Instead, he's pushed the envelope with creativity, courage, and flair. And he joins us now on Power Business to give us a glimpse into the highs and hurdles and the hustle behind DNA brand architects. Sylvester, very good evening, and good to have you with us in studio.
Good evening. Yes, it's good to be here. Thank you.
So let's start off then at the beginning. What drew you into the world of branding and communication, and how did your journey really take shape?
I think, like many young people, there's always that question, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? And of course, when I was younger, I had so many different options, be a teacher, be a journalist, be on TV or whatever. Until when I was about 12 years old, I went for an audition for a TV commercial and I luckily got the part. And a couple of days later, I was on set and we were shooting this TV commercial. And I would say then I was introduced to the world of advertising as you would have it, because obviously up to that point, I didn't really consider that there would be an industry like this, nor did I even think I was going to work in a job like that. And I'd say that advertising sort of found me. And since then, I really was quite interested in that world, and I wanted to find out more. And my research and my digging and my inquisitiveness led me to marketing communication and advertising and brand communication as a sector to kind of go into. And of course, I then pursued my university degree in advertising, and of course, as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, and then also from Nando's to MTV and now DNA brand architects. Talk to us about how did each chapter sort of unfold and prepare you for your own agency?
In fact, my initial start in my career was actually in advertising, because basically from university I then started working in advertising, and I started at FCB, which was one of the biggest advertising agency at the time, doing some of the most amazing South African creative work. And I started there as an intern, and of course really rose up the ranks, and after that I went to work for another agency, which was Ogilvy, who was also the best in the business, an amazing business, actually, an amazing agency. And then from there, I went to DDB. So by the time I went to Nando's and MTV, I'd already been in the world of advertising and communication. And I would say that each and every single step has been quite phenomenal in being able to set me up with the right skills. FCB gave me a foundation. And then I went into Ogilvy. They really, it inspired me in terms of the world of creativity. And I went to DDB, who chiseled me to shape to love the work that we do as brand communication specialists and as advertising, as the advertising industry as a whole. Then I went to Nando's, which is about creativity and doing things very differently. And then I went to MTV, which is about how do we take our talent across the continent into the world. So each and every single one of them were quite important in my skill set now, starting DNA or having started DNA 13 years ago. It was quite wonderful to get to use all the different skill sets into this one particular space. But each and every single jump, as you call it, absolutely vital for the next.
And then your mantra, stand against bland. That's become synonymous with your work. Talk to us about what does it mean for you, and then also how it's shaped how you approach your leadership.
Stand Against Bland was a necessity for me. I think it was really around how do you ensure that you deliver things very differently every time you are engaging with people, with business, and I suppose in our world with creativity as a whole. And it came from when I was a student. I had finished my degree at University of Johannesburg, and I needed to get into an agency to start my internship. And I, of course, knew that for me to get into the agency, I would need to do something different in order for me to be noticed, because every single other student or graduate wanted to go and work at, for example, FCB, which is where I wanted to work. So my sort of way to stand out at the time was to actually use a trick, which was to buy a pizza box, or to get a pizza box. And I actually went to FCB and I said, I'm here to deliver pizza. So they let me in, and then I was able to get to speak to HR. And basically what happened was that I tricked them by putting my CV inside the pizza box and saying I'm a pizza delivery guy and I'm here to showcase my creativity. And it was something quite cute that I wrote on the CV that said, you need to have a slice of this talent. So that was a way for me realizing that in order for me to stand out, I would need to do things very differently. So stand against bland was that everything that is bland is everything that is usual, that is expected, that is boring, and that is mundane. And I think in order for us as creators, if we're going to stand out, we'd need to do things very differently. And since then, with every single step in my career, it has really proven that it works. Showing that how you stand out and how you create your work and how you show up is different to how everybody else does it. But also not for the sake of doing so, but for a purpose that allows you to have an advantage with whatever sort of challenge that you are going through or whatever objective is at hand.
Listen, those are some really real creative juices there. What you did there with the pizza box. If I was a hiring manager, I of course would have hired you on the spot. But also talk to us about, when there was a moment where you took a bold, creative risk and it backfired. How did you deal with that?
There's been quite a lot. I mean, with every single win, there's been a lot of losses, and I think in creative, it's important that one has an understanding that not every single piece of creative is going to be the best that you ever created. And I think it helps because you, I suppose, know then that when you do hit and get a really good jackpot of an amazing creative idea, it actually works. So I've had quite a number of those. And one particular one I remember, which was quite diabolical, was a TV ad that we did. And it was actually so bad that I think we pulled it out, within a week that it was on air because there were so many complaints and a lot of people were upset about it. So it was in my early days at Nando's, and I had just arrived, and there was this TV commercial that was being shot, and it was about these tongues, and because of the peri-peri, it made the tongue so big, and so clever idea, I suppose, about the effects of peri-peri on taste buds, but it was just so whack in the way that it was delivered. And I suppose, as a lead at the time, it was quite key then to kind of manage that, and it backfired badly. But I think also it really taught me the importance of being able to appreciate putting work out, but also getting feedback that allows you to improve the work or shift when you need to. So by listening in, we then are able to come back with something much more potent, much more exciting, and much more powerful.
16 minutes now past 7 o'clock on Power Business. It's Tuesday edition of the show. For Hus's Playbook this evening, we have Sylvester Chauke, founder and chief architect at DNA Brand Architects. If you have any question for our guests this evening, the number to dial 0861 987 000, or you can send us a WhatsApp message 083 303 7093. Just remember to keep it brief and to the point. But of course, Sylvester, talk to us about what was the biggest reality check then that you faced in your first year of launching DNA Brand Architects.
Like any entrepreneur, when you start a business, the big thing is around making sure that you are able to sustain it. And that means you need to go find clients that are going to appreciate your product or service. And then you want to keep them, close to you and making sure that you have recurring business. And I think for me, the biggest thing was around having started the business and not having had the credentials per se as the entity itself. It was so important for me to really get businesses or a client that is able to showcase the example of what I can do, or be the catalyst for showcasing the work and the creativity that we're able to bring on board. So I suppose the biggest hurdle, and I would imagine every entrepreneur goes through this, is the finding a solid client, a retained client, someone that can be able to allow you to do the work that you dream of doing, but also allows you to pay you so that you can be able to come back to work the next day. And so I'd say that for me, just being able to be consistent was a big thing. You have to be consistent as an entrepreneur, because you want to ensure that when you do receive that brief, you are able to respond to it and you're able to deliver to it every single time that you get it. And I think that has been a very important part of building a sustainable business. And 13 years in, we continue to understand that and to be humbled by the fact that we need to continue to deliver in order for us to continue to be in business into the future.
Yeah. And to your point of building a sustainable business, with credibility, you've often called the dancing CEO. So how has your authentic sort of personal brand contributed then to the business success, and what can emerging entrepreneurs learn from that?
I think that the privilege of being able to start a business from scratch also allows one to be able to determine the kind of culture they want to infuse into that business. And I think it was important then for me that whatever that we were building into this business was something that we wanted to put forward intentionally. And I think was critical was, at least in my case, was, do I do these things because I want to do them, or do I do these things because I'm copying them from someone else, another business, another company, etc.? So it was important then to find a spot. And for me, dancing and being creative in that way was a natural spot for me, because I was a dancer growing up, and I think that it then worked out quite beautifully to be able to kind of infuse some elements of that in our Friday dances, but also in the way that I would always show up, and that almost happened organically, but also it was trial and error, because you try something and it works and you continue, and then you keep sharpening it and moving it. So authenticity for me is critical. So if you have a passion and an area that you want to challenge, it's so important in an entrepreneurial journey to test that and to do as much as you can to ensure that you are utilizing that opportunity of starting a business, but also infusing it with your own sense of style or signature.
Let's go to the WhatsApp lines now. We've got a WhatsApp message coming in this evening. Good evening, Nosipho. I'm a big fan of Mr. Sylvester Chauke. For those who aren't privileged to land an internship in the advertising, marketing, or branding industry, what should they do to gain experience and set themselves apart to improve their chances getting into this creative space? And that message coming from Temba. What are your thoughts there?
Temba, that's a fantastic question, because I think, a lot of young professionals, after graduating, they do find themselves in that very challenging space where you need to get yourself an internship. And I think the example that I made earlier around, it just wasn't enough for me to deliver a CV at a company I want to work for. It was so important for me to showcase my creativity in the way that I actually delivered that. So I'd say if you want to get into an internship at an advertising agency or a brand communications agency, is to show them what they will get by employing you. So it's not going to be in the CV, actually, if I'm honest. It's going to be in how you are going about trying to get their attention. So at the office, for example, we have a lot of really incredible young interns who have done amazing things, like, delivering a pair of a shoe or a sneaker with all their details written on them, for example, or delivering a box in a different way, like whether it's a pizza, like I did, but also many of them are doing it in a very interesting, creative way now. It's no longer enough to just email a CV somewhere. I think you do need to figure out a way of being able to tell a story and showcase what it is that you can bring to the table. And I'd say most of the time it's about just really applying yourself and saying, if I was the hiring manager, who would grab my attention, and then do that.
Yeah. So what I'm getting is also about the soft skills there, how you sort of relate to people and showing them what you've got to offer without really talking about your qualifications. Those are sort of standard when it comes to that.
It's soft skills mixed with, I suppose, a practical showcase. Of what you can do. So if you're a writer, what's the best way to showcase that you're a great writer is by writing something beautiful as part of your CV. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So if you're a musician, if you want to get someone's attention, you're going to sing or record something that showcases that. It's no longer just saying this is what I do on paper. It's actually more about showcasing what you do in other forms. And I think for me, the resourcefulness of a young person, how they get to secure that interview, also says a lot about the way that they move. And by the way, if you do have 500 young people wanting to get an internship in one company, how do you differentiate from that? It is going to require that you go a little bit further than what everybody else does, which is to email a CV or drop off a CV at reception, which is no longer enough.
Let's get through some more WhatsApp messages. We've got a message here from Tato in Soweto saying, how did you know it was the right time to leave your corporate job and start your own business? So many people are stuck between steady paycheck and their dream. What gave you the final push to take the leap?
So I would say I bungee jumped across. I mean, I was never ready on all those jobs, if I'm honest, because, when I left Nando's to go join MTV Networks, there was a question like, why would you leave Nando's? I mean, are you mad? Because you're doing well. And I suppose listening into yourself and knowing what is right for you is critical, because at some point, yes, people have opinions about, when is it the right time for you to move, but you also need to be ready to be able to, jump into an opportunity when you feel ready to do so. And so I didn't always know that it was the right time for me to move naturally, but I think some of the jobs, for example, were where I was headhunted or I was invited for a job interview when I was not really even looking. But I think by listening in and spending more time with the opportunity, then it gave me more of a reason why I should take the leap of faith and go and join that particular company. But also sometimes you also know what you need. Every single job, there's a limitation, or you do get to know that you have done a good job where you are, but you do need to move in order for you to learn new skills. So when I moved from Nando's to go to MTV, it was also, I wanted to work on the continent much more. So it gave me a better opportunity. I'm not just working in South Africa, but I can work in other markets across the continent. And when I started DNA, it was actually more around, how do I take all my experience and then put it into my own outfit? So listen in terms of what is the driver for what you need next, but also knowing what you need next is also helpful.
Yeah. Okay, let's get through the last WhatsApp message there. This one from Sizwe in Waterfall saying, how did you convince your first big client to take a chance on you, on your company? Was it all about the pitch, the relationships, or just timing?
All three of the above. Definitely, it helped that I had experience working in the industry prior to starting DNA Brand Architect, which is something that is quite important, that there was some level of credibility with regards to what I do in business, even though it was not in my own agency. That was important. But two, definitely the pitch itself was important, because in our world, thankfully, it's always going to be about what is the work you're putting in front of your client and the kind of solutions that you are putting in front of them, and whether you are building a new brand or trying to drive reputation, there's the way in which you solve that problem for them determines a lot whether you are going to make it or not. And of course, timing as well. I think we started DNA 13 years ago. There was an opportunity there for brand, for an agency like ours to do that kind of work. And I think that also helped. I mean, I suppose, in life, there's always multiple factors all happening at the same time. And I think it was like that for me as well.
Yeah. And then, how do you see, looking ahead, how do you see the role then of marketing evolving in a world that's sort of characterized by digital disruptions? We've got cultural shifts. What do you see within those movements?
The world is definitely changing, and it's changing very fast, and we've seen it, and we're all part of that evolution. And we see what AI is doing to our businesses and our world today, but social media, digital technologies, etc. But I think for me, the core of what communication is really around conveying a message in the most compelling way. So I think that's always going to be at the core of what we do. And I think the importance of going back to great ideas for me, it's really where the magic is always going to be, because a good idea is one thing, but a great idea is something that you cannot ignore and you can't miss. And I think for us as the industry, going back to what makes the industry special is around how we make people feel, number one, and also how we ensure that we build the bridge between the brands that we are supporting and services that we're supporting and the lives of consumers. But something that's more important for me is actually about the role of brands in being able to drive a cohesive and exciting community and exciting country, exciting culture, because I think that brands have an amazing opportunity to also be able to lean in how they can be able to elevate our communities and elevate people. So creative work that also has meaning, that has support for community, that cares about people, that cares about looking after the livelihoods of people that serve in this country. I think it's also so wonderful for creativity to play an amazing part there. And as a country, particularly now, it's so important as well that we also utilize communication to try to challenge the status quo, to challenge our governments, to challenge service delivery issues that we're experiencing as a country, to challenge how we want to see our country into the future. And I think brands can't just sit back and hope for the best. They also need to be participating in being able to drive that cohesion, the social cohesion, in how we as people in our country can participate in our future.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask you about, your thoughts around how the industry contributes to, the problems that we see in society, the challenges that we see in our country, but also just other general standards on beauty, and overconsumption, issues like that. But we are out of time, so I'm going to ask you very quickly then to talk to us about, what excites you about the future of DNA and also the legacy that you're trying to build.
I think what excites me is absolutely the return of the core of what creativity is about, which is really about leaving an impression and creating value, utilizing brands and services in our communities, but doing so in a way that respects the consumers in our country, that respects our planet, that also does things with a responsibility and a sustainability in mind, to ensure that we're not messing up our countries and our planet, but we are doing a much better job of inspiring it for better.
Yeah, and we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Sylvester, for that really engaging and insightful conversation.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
All right, that was Sylvester Chauke, founder and chief architect at DNA Brand Architects, coming to us this evening for our edition of Hustlers Playbook.